Hello, listeners of the Art Versations podcast from wherever you are tuning in, whether it be Canada, America, Germany, UK, or Ireland. Hello, thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Bri, like the cheese, hoping the holidays have brought you time for whatever your body and mind is signaling to you. This is a bonus episode where we'll hear from every guest of the past year. If you resonate with the guest topic or want to hear more about their process, well, here's your sign to click away from this show, be gone, and go check out the full episodes. Still with me? Okay, good. Let's take a trip down memory lane. We heard from 11 guests this year, ranging from movers to filmmakers to actors to teachers, all artists dedicated to their craft. And what a lineup! I'm so grateful for each of these artists' time, energy, offerings to the audio space, stories from their 2022 projects. I've thought a lot about this past year being kind of an experience of renewal. Live performance feels fully back in my orbit, causing me to reflect on intentional art consuming. A few questions that have come up is, why am I drawn to seeing this piece of art? Who inspires me with their creative choices? What isn't needed in the arts community? Let's continue on this thought train and hear from the incredible artists who make this podcast what it is. Montreal-based dance artist and choreographer, Zachary Bastille.
Well, I mean, halfway through the process, I was recommended a book. I think it's called The 6 Habits of an Effective Person or something like that.
Okay.
And it's a book about, it's like kind of a framework for how you live your life and the way, your perspective on the world. And I think like inside the first chapter, there was mention of independence versus dependence versus interdependence. Mm-hmm. And I was like halfway through the creation process of A Strange Poet. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is like, it's making sense of the work, cool. Which I was like really, exactly, which I was really excited about. But yeah, this piece came, so when the Terra Firma was announced, I was recommended, I applied for it. I wasn't sure what work I wanted to do. So then I went through a list of like ideas that I have. Sometimes it's just like inspiration, like lines from books or movie shows that like strike inspiration in me. And then I found it was this painter, Francine Simonet, whose work I had seen this summer, and I'm not sure what I'm not really great at like paintings and what era it is or what form of it, but it's definitely like in a more contemporary like 1960s upward aesthetic.
Okay.
And it was beautiful and simplistic and chaotic, and I read a little bit about her, and she's inspired by, well, she was, because she passed away, and she was inspired by female dancers and female models in the creation of work, which I was like, oh my god, like, I'm a dancer, like, this relates to me. I mean, I'm not female, but like, still.
Like bodies in space,
bodies,
right?
yes. And I was like, how can I recreate, obviously without like plagiarizing, but like how can I like use these lines into my choreographic practice? And that was like back in the summer. And then fast forward to December, I had just seen this light projection digital immersive exhibition in Montreal that was called Oasis, I think, light immersive.
Cool.
And it was like a stunning experience because you're like in a room and it's like 360 all around you, just like a projection. It's accompanied by this like beautiful music. And there was like this one artist work, Alex Leguiu, who created, it was like all these like particles, but like thousands, millions of them all around shifting, creating shapes kind of like waves or wind, changing color. And it was like juxtaposed beautifully with the music. It was changing dynamics, changing in pace and everything. And I was like, he like just transported me.
Cool.
Like I was not like in this room in Montreal. I was like,
you took a trip to another dimension.
I did. And it was like, wow. And these two works had, when I look at them, I was like, it's kind of like I'm in a storm, but I'm observing all the beauty of the chaos of it.
Wow.
And then when I wrote down the application, I was like thinking about like what connects both works. And I was like, this idea of storm, this idea of like these particles connecting and then disconnecting. One of the work by Francine Simonet was called Les Îles, so the islands.
Okay.
And you could clearly see like these like 4 or 5 islands in the painting. And then from there came, I like having a storyline. It's like very, like, it's sometimes it's underneath, it's ambiguous, but I just need like the structure for the interaction between the dancers.
Same.
Or like the narrative, the arc, the
give me
pace.
character or give me nothing. Like,
yes,
I'm sorry.
exactly. I think it just like helps me as a creator find where we're going to go next.
Yes.
So then I arrived on the idea of these isles who are connected by this like vast ocean, but yet they'll never touch.
Toronto-based dance artist and photographer Audrianna Martin Del Campo.
Yeah, I'm guessing you haven't been out to Prince Edward County, but it's really special, really beautiful. A lot of wineries, really just different feel. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Like I really, really loved it, and they did as well too. I went to visit them a few times, and Jordan has some family out there who own a sheep farm called Wapoose Sheep. Or I don't know if that's the official name, but they do own a sheep farm. They're very known in the area.
Okay.
And Annie got a job working at a winery, so it just felt so like very Hallmark. Just like she works at the winery, he's just working on the farm with the sheep.
The simple life.
Yeah, exactly. Which I was like here for, especially just their transition out of city life. And she's obviously like still very involved in the arts and would come back and stuff like that, and is doing all these projects now.
Yes.
But
yeah, Annie was the dramaturge for A Grim Night.
Yes, exactly. Our first time working together officially, both in like kind of different realms, but it was really cool. We're building some like witch tent in the corner, putting blood on. I'm like, I love that like this is our first like professional thing together. This is amazing. But they had the opportunity to come back in the summer because in the summer is when like all of these sheeps give birth to these lambs. So all these females get moved onto a barge like over to this little island that's just off the mainland with like a few kind of
I'm getting right now.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy. Like I'm just like, this is amazing that I have friends that I'm able to have this experience with. But so they've been living there kind of since May. I mean, Annie will commute back here and there. She still is like has a lot of projects and things going on. But yeah, they're just taking care of these sheep. There's like 2,000, and they're all starting to like give birth now to these sweet little baby lambs who are just running around. It just feels like so fairy tale.
Wow.
I'm actually from here. I'm going there because it's Annie's birthday next week. So like we're all heading up for like a little birthday celebration. So I'll probably be taking a ton of photos and trying to hold these little precious animals. But we just thought this feels like extremely once in a lifetime kind of thing. Like we have access, or you guys have access to this really, really remote but very spacious island that has kind of everything elemental that we'd be interested in, like these forests, creeks, ponds, like lake, all these things. This really like old bones of the beautiful kind of like Victorian historical homes, and just all these sheep in the background. Like we have to do something.
Totally, yeah.
And it kind of became the like, yeah, like we should, but then we're like, no, but we actually should. Like let's actually like put our money where our mouth is kind of thing. So we've applied to a few different grants and stuff. We've yet to hear back, but either way we still plan to go through with this. And just having these ideas of, we kind of have like a few different things, so it's just for us to sit down and talk about of like the finalization of where we kind of want to go with this, but kind of involving this bringing kind of the wine element into that as well, and just set with like basically like an all-female cast.
Amazing.
Just she kind of has drafted a script, which is really interesting. We want to make it kind of relatable, almost like millennial, just like, you know, the classic like girls' wine trip or like bachelorette party weekend, but give it this kind of like interesting spin on it, kind of like talking about how like females, I mean, kind of going with this binary here, but like just that more like female energy of just like this kind of how confrontation is handled and kind of this kind of underlying rage and kind of miscommunication and how that kind of comes out.
Yes.
But in a kind of like surreal, lighthearted way as opposed to like a thriller. But just having that kind of elements, because what I'm drawn to most in my kind of style of filmmaking that I really, really love has a kind of moody, ambient, surreal element to it. So we're going to try to find that kind of sweet spot between like, wait, is this going to go south? Oh, no, it's actually not. It's just like this girl being dumb, or like, oh, but wait. Like, you don't really know kind of thing, but
keeping everyone on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, exactly, but still very fun, and definitely kind of touching on like these surreal elements. Also, just with all these sheep running around, it feels like the story's just writing itself in that way.
Yeah. Just having that background image of like a full herd of 2,000 sheep. That's so
2,000, and that's like insane. Without the lambs even there. It's like there's 2,000 that like made it onto the island.
That's actually insane. Wow.
Yeah, really crazy.
Toronto-based actor and director Luke Kimball.
It's great. It's an acknowledgement of like, we are all here together, right? And the audience goes, yes, indeed.
We're here together, exactly.
That's so, and that's what the theater has, and you're exactly right. It's so satisfying, and you know, it nourishes you, to go back to your food metaphor. Yeah. Like, you know, it's not the film can't do it, because I have seen films that have done it, but or that have felt, you know, that are particularly challenging and evocative, but it's the difference of like, I love throwing on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, I'm not trying to speak ill of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but at the end of it, it's like, oh, that was a good dessert. Like, that was a good snack. Yes. As opposed to like, when I see a good piece of theater, that's like a good, healthy dinner that feels satisfying. Yeah, it's a feast when it's good. Yeah. And that's why I think, you know, when I see a bad movie, I'm kind of like, oh, that sucked. When I see a bad play, I leave it going like, oh, that's so frustrating, because I worked and I couldn't enjoy it, and that's really disappointing. Particularly when it's almost good. Like, I feel like, oh, it was so cool, it could have been, and that drives me crazy in a way that I don't feel about film. But then when it goes well, it's like we've all succeeded, and it feels so, as you said, it feels so satisfying. And so I think that's something really special that theater can offer.
And going back to what we were saying about Canadian audiences needing to come back to theater, or even just being introduced to it, there's something so special about this show, because it's so global, because it has a legacy. Even if you don't even know the last name of Harry Potter, like, you know that it's about wizards. Sure. So you know that you're going to come in there feeling so fantastical and otherworldly, and going into a new dimension. You know, I think that, like you said, and like the Globe and Mail said, this is a perfect example of what we need right now. We need something that is global. I'm sure it's a happy show. I'm sure like there's nothing, you know, that's gonna like drag people away from it. I'm sure it's gonna bring people up, which is something else we need right now.
There are obviously
there's going to be trauma, and there's going to be obstacles in it, yes, but
you know, you go through the play, and you hope for a happy ending, and it you know, I don't know where the play goes. I don't know how it goes, but certainly it draws you into a story with people that when I read the story and when I saw the story that I loved, and I was going through it with. Yeah, it was a really exciting experience when I saw it. And I feel pretty confident that it's going to be that here. Just looking at... Yeah. It's very rare that I'm in a show, and it's hard, as you know, when you're in a show, looking at it and going like, you kind of look around and you're like, is this good? I think we're in a good one, right? I
think it's working.
You know, you are always like, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's hard to know.
Yeah, that word hope that you said, that's so needed right now.
Yeah, I think that this show, it really is special, and I get like throw up in my mouth every time I say it's a magical show because it's just too on the nose. But I'm like, but it is. It is a magical show.
Not just in a physical making of spells, but like the feeling is magical going there. I'm assuming
Deeply.
Yeah.
And you know, especially if you read the stories, because you're going back to these places that you have a relationship with, and you get to experience it in a new way with new characters and old characters, and it's really exciting.
Toronto-based choreographer and producer Tavia Christina.
What is challenging always is working with your friends. And like you have to, like, only now in the last couple of years have I realized how integral it is to keep that friendship alive first and make sure like the people that you care about still care about you by the end of the project, or else it's like, what the fuck did you just do? You killed two things with one stone? Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, like our relationship has changed in the last 5 years in general, but specifically through this process too. Like, I am being honest, like this is the first time where I've had to take on more of an individual role, like just for this process for Fringe. I'm the main choreographer, and like typically Rachel and I would just co-choreograph, so it's been interesting to like have all of the creative responsibility like on my back, and you're like, I just have to trust myself that it's gonna work, but at the same time I love validation,
Which I'm learning about.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like you know the 5 love languages?
Yes.
It's also like the 5 creative languages.
oh yeah
Of like, what does your partner need?
mm-hmm.
Because I'm usually someone who wouldn't give words of affirmation.
Oh,
but I want
love
to do that for
words
you
of
now. Yeah.
affirmation.
And we've learned like about that through this process.
Yeah, and it's not that like I want you to tell me that, oh yeah, Tavia, like that's perfect. But you're like, no, but like I respect like you're making good creative choices. Like as your producer, I respect that. And I'm like, oh fuck yes, sick. But
I'm learning about that now.
Yeah, and I feel like because it's both of our first times, people butt heads.
Yeah.
And like humps happen.
Yes.
You just gotta get over the hump back and make sure that you communicate with and like listen as well. And I feel like we've done such a good job at doing that. Like there was a point where the two of us were like, fuck. What? Something's not going wrong.
Yeah.
And like to personally delve on that, like I was going through a lot at the moment, and I needed like more support in order to get through this process, or else I feel like the show wouldn't have gone on because I just wasn't in a place like emotionally and mentally where I felt like I could carry on. And I'm so grateful that you bared that weight for me at that point. And now that I'm coming out of it, like more and more I'm having my footing and whatnot, getting back to stable grounds.
Yes, I see it.
Yeah, it's just so nice to like lean on someone for a while, but like know that by leaning, like you're giving weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like that weight is powerful too.
Multifaceted movement facilitator and podcast creator, Charlene Dinger.
There was like, you know, for me anyways, there was like a really big awakening around how these processes, like the roots of yoga, you know, were just like taken by Western civilization and it's just like exploded into this like
among many things,
right?
Yeah.
And so I can't remember where I found it. I don't know if it was probably recommended to me. One of my very like dear teachers is part of this foundation. It's called New Leaf Foundation, and it is basically it's anti-oppression and trauma informed training. That was one of the courses that I took with them.
It was 15 hours, right? Reaching in.
Yes, reaching out is one of their programs that they offer. And essentially what New Leaf Foundation does is they go into marginalized communities, or they go into spaces where like there's people that are incarcerated, or they work with youth that would not normally have access, and so it's really about this accessibility and coming from a trauma-informed lens, coming from an anti-oppression lens and understanding what that means, and creating those safe spaces, so to speak.
Yes.
Understanding that everyone is going to be coming in different every day. Again, we're layered human beings, and so you don't know what that person has gone through. So how can you provide, a practice, a space where that person can just come in, connect to their breath, which even that, like, take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
That can be triggering for somebody. And so, like, we just think, like, oh, yoga is like, yoga is about, like, breath and, connection to your breath and making these beautiful shapes. And it's like, but that could actually be, like, the complete opposite of what somebody needs that day. So it's hard.
It is,
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of getting rid of the ego.
Yes.
Showing up for those people and just, like, really tuning into what it is that they need. So there were some really wonderful lessons in that course. One of the ones that has just always stuck with me has been this anti-oppression lesson from one of my favorite teachers, Jamila, who, funny enough, I met through Cornerstone.
Oh.
And then, like, circled around into this training with her. And then she ended up being in many various other, like, yoga teacher trainings that I've done, which, now, thankfully, I think people are sort of waking up to this and are implementing an anti-oppression part of yoga teacher training.
Great. That's really great to hear.
Yes, yeah. And, all about inclusive language, all about where you are on that wheel of privilege.
Yes.
How close you are, how centered you are to, depending on, like, the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, like, how centered are you? And then, working outwards towards, like, the more marginalized groups and understanding what that is within the yoga space. So I'm really grateful to them. I hope to work with them in the future, because it's something that now, again, the older I get, the more experience I have, the more I'm coming to understand myself and how layered I am as a human being, the more I am really understanding, like, we are all coming from these places, and we are all very layered human beings. You don't know what someone else has gone through, and that's where the compassion and the kindness component comes right back into it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It always comes back to it.
Beautiful and very needed.
Always.
Yeah.
It always circles back to this. Like, you have to integrate that into it. Otherwise, like, what are we here for? Like, what are we here for?
Toronto and Montreal-based dance artist Katie Adams-Gossage.
I find it hard to, or something I'm currently working on is, like, differentiating between what are, like, choreographic rules that have been imposed on me or sort of, like, drilled into me over my life and history in the dance world, and what is it that I actually want to make? Like, where do those, is this my instinct because of something that I've been brainwashed to think will make it look like good dance, or is this my instinct because this is me art making?
Ooh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And so I think something about just, like, removing the need to call it choreography at all has been healthy for me, and think of it more as, like, this is something I'm making, and the medium is bodies and time.
Right.
But it's not necessarily, or I try as much as possible to step away from my sort of prescription of this is what I need to do to make a good choreography.
Did that did you find that switch like coming out of school? Because like for me, when I was in school, I was like, oh, I'm making an assignment. I'm making a work so that people can judge it and give it a grade. And that was horrid for me, and it made me hate going to school most days. Because I feel like now that you're out of that institutionalized, this is what dance should be, like, I mean, I'm hoping you have more freedom to, like, play with the different mediums and not let it just be choreography.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really became apparent to me just while making the solo, because I would I get in this way where I, like, I get kind of stuck, like, while I'm making something, like, in the room, I'm like, I need to stop. We need to stop making things now. And I found that was, like, really happening, like, a lot. And so I started questioning, I'm like, I need to know why this is happening to me. And I think it's because it was becoming clear that I was stopping myself before I could start, because I was scared of not living up to those rules. Like, there was this really significant moment to me that I, like, reference back to all the time, where I was having one of these stuck moments, and I told Fred, I'm like, I'm just so stuck right now, and I feel like I can't keep going because you haven't gone to stage left at all yet. Which sounds like, now even hearing that, I'm like, that sounds so silly because it's so far removed from, like, how I'm working now. But it was just like something in me was like, she has to be on. You have to use the whole stage. You have to use the whole stage. Yeah. She has to use the floor. She has to go up. She has to go down. Like, whatever. So I don't know. There has to be sections. The sections have to be different. They have to last a certain amount of time. Like, she can't do anything for too long. I just had all these rules built up, and so at one point I just said that out loud, like, sort of casually while I was stuck. I was like, well, you haven't gone stage left yet, and right now I have the urge to keep you over here, but I feel like I have to bring you stage left. And she just said to me, like, why do I have to go stage left?
She's checking in with you.
She told me what was up. Back. She was like, why do I have to go stage left? And I was like, well, I just feel like you have to go stage left in order for this work to be complete. And so that in that moment, it started bringing to my attention, because she just, like, asked me the question so bluntly, why do I have to go stage left? And the answer was, because I feel like that's what's needed to make good choreography. And then, of course, why is that what's needed to make
good choreography?
Yeah, good choreography.
Yeah,
and
what's good?
Yeah, what's good choreography, and why does it involve stage left? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Toronto-based director and producer, Ace Kazkayasi. What does it mean to you to be, like, a female in film, a female in arts, making, you know, work about females? What does that mean to you?
I'm so proud of it. You know, I always say being a woman is my superpower, and I really believe in that. And I know some people might say, oh, that's so cliche or whatever, but I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hard, and it's harder because it's one thing going on set for 17 hours, it's another thing being on set for 17 hours and on your period. Like, it's hard, you know?
I feel you.
So I don't want to come up here and say it's the same thing, and especially when people step on you, and, you know, it's like, it's actually hard. And I know, like, guys listen to this stuff and they're like, oh, females are just exaggerating, and they're like, but no, like, it is hard, especially when like you try to prove yourself, and men who are older than you on the table look at you as if you don't have a say, and even judge you in a way that, like, oh, how did she come here? Like, I know a lot of people, females who are up there doing great things, who are being judged of, like, how did she come here? But you don't ask those type of questions if it was a guy, right?
Yeah.
Which is, like, horrible. So I've been really, like distant and respectful with everyone to, like, protect my image and just, like, make a, like, respectful name for myself. But it's really, like, sad that is a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost as if we have to, like, put up a shield of, like, already, even if I haven't met someone, I have to, like, really make sure I'm taking care of myself.
Yes.
Because I don't know how they're going to judge me, put me in my place, put me in a box.
Or try to take advantage of me.
Totally.
Talk to me in ways that are not professional.
Yeah. It's so sad that that's, like, has happened. I'm hoping that we've, been able to uncover stories and talk a little bit more about it, and maybe that will reverse things. But I feel like it's still prevalent. It's still there. Yeah. How do you overcome, if someone is making you feel stepped on, how do you overcome that and just do your job?
Honestly, I feel like I've gotten better at it, but it comes with more experience and maturity. I feel like when I was first getting started, other reason why I actually considered, maybe I shouldn't even pursue film and I should just go with dance, because I've already done dance and dance is good and maybe I can make money off of it, whatever, is because I had a few older white men producers tell me, this is not an industry for women. You won't have a family life, you won't have a stable life, and it'll be really hard for you. I think it's best you don't even start.
They didn't even want you to start?
Yeah.
They flat out told you that, stop while you're ahead.
Yeah, and I think what's even sadder is they weren't saying it in a mean way to discourage me. They were more so saying it as, this is the reality. You're gonna try and you're gonna fail, so you shouldn't even start. We're saying this for the best of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so... I can't imagine, hearing that and then, still being as successful as you already are, going through all of these projects. No, but, you were telling me, you're yeah, now I'm a production manager and I'm doing, you are working.
Yeah.
You are in the business already. This is... It has happened for you now, and, I just think that's so inspiring that after you heard those horribly negative comments about what quote unquote might be happening in the industry, that you kept going.
It was hard, especially as at the time I was 16, 17, so you were much more influenceable at that time.
Yes.
Hearing something like that, you immediately think maybe they know something, and even though in the back of my mind I'm no, I want to pursue my thing. It was hard, but I feel I met the right people as well. Not to shit on all the guys, I feel there's also very good, very respectful men out there in the industry who just when I mentioned this story to one of them, he told me no, you're gonna be a film director.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. He's one of my he's my cinematographer now. We work together. Yeah.
New York-based artist and dance educator Frances Lorraine Samson.
It's a long journey that continues. Well, when I got the job, I was very young. I was 19. I had no idea that I needed to get a lawyer or that there was all this paperwork. I thought getting the job was the hard part. The paperwork was.
Oh, gosh.
And so it ended up taking me about 8 months my first time. But I blame that on my procrastination. It is a lot of work. So I have a visa advisor and then a team of lawyers who support me. I'm currently going to my third artist visa. So I renew it every 3 years. And it's just a lot of, it's a detailed CV. And you are just selling yourself as an artist to people who aren't artists. I guess similar to what it might be with writing a grant, except it's for every bit of work you've done. And I think I was a little traumatized from the first experience.
Understood.
But I have to keep reminding myself that I did it once, I've done it twice, and I know I could do it again.
That's very understanding. Or I think I could understand where, if things are rough right away and you're 19 and you just turned down going to a university program, and then you're plunged into having to figure out your own life and sell yourself. I could absolutely understand how that would be traumatizing and feel you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this again. What kept you going besides your team of support?
I guess my love for the work we do. I don't think I'd do it for any other company. And I think that's really it.
That's enough. That is absolutely enough.
Do it for the work that I do. It's just incredibly rewarding and purposeful. And it's also, it gives me context to Jose Limon. Not that I'm going to relate my experience to his life, but he was an immigrant artist who came from war-torn Mexico to the United States. And he definitely had a harder life than me, but we both experienced what it is to be an outsider. And I think that's why so much of his work shows hope and resilience, that even when you can't, or you think you can't do it, you can.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you have support and a community, it is possible.
Toronto-based dance educator and graphic designer Sarahí Cárdenas.
As much as I love ballet is my life. It's what I do, and now I love it.
Yeah.
I still love it, but if we collectively don't do something to like progress with the times, not just like culturally, socially, physically, mentally, it's going to die because people realize, now that we are a little bit more aware of things, people very soon realize that we don't have anything in common with ballet, and people are just not interested in things that they don't have things in common, that people that things that you can't relate to,
Right.
So yeah, if ballet doesn't keep on changing and hopefully a little bit more speedier pace, it's going to die.
It comes from such a like old school mentality, and like it came from a very elitist royal background in the history of it. So is it needed now?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. And like, how do we grapple with that, and how do we also like change it so that if it still is needed in some way, we need to change the way we teach it then.
Absolutely.
Like you said, because it's going to just filter out. It's going to be something that humans and dancers will not need.
Exactly.
If we continue. Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from the sake of tradition.
Yeah.
This is how we used to do it. This is how my teacher taught me. This is how my teachers told them,
Totally, yeah.
And again, times have changed. Like, as humans, we evolve, and we may kind of look the same as the very first ballerinas did, and not even actually. The bodies back then were very different to the bodies that we see these days.
Yes, and the shoes were made differently too, especially the point shoes.
Yeah. So why will we keep those traditions? Not because we've done something a certain way for thousands of years. Does that mean that is A, correct, and B, that we should keep on doing it the same?
Right.
So
yeah, I love ballet too, and it's like, I feel weird about saying that in some ways, because I'm like, why do I love it?
And proud.
I'm always like, oh, I should hate it because it's very Eurocentric and white, and it's very, like colonial in that sense. And then I recognize that how should I change my relationship to it then? Because if I love it still, and it reminds me of being like a kid and flying and being a fairy, then I need to look at it differently. And especially too, when I teach it, like, I really have to make sure my students know, like, your body is functional to be able to do this. Like, I'll usually say a disclaimer of like, I'm not going to offer you a service where I change your body to fit the mold of whatever it was back then. I'm going to offer you a service where you can train your body geared towards it.
Yeah.
So that they're safe, hopefully. Like, it terrifies me when I will go to a class sometimes and the teacher is like, you have to like open those toes to the maximum fifth, and I'm like, what are you teaching these kids?
I know.
You're teaching them to hate their bodies.
Yeah.
To start off by saying your body is not right for this. That's going to completely destroy their passion for it. Yeah. So thank you for all the work that you do to make sure that it's healthy,
Yeah. And that's, for example, because I guess we've stated that I like science.
Yeah,
I always have a passion for science.
You almost went to school for it.
Yeah. And now that I'm older, I realize that all throughout ballet school, the only thing I remember learning about my body was to hate it.
Wow.
Whereas now I know that the things that I'm interested in learning about my body is how it works.
Oh my goodness, what a reframing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's that. And hopefully we can all, at the very least, not teach kids how to hate their bodies.
Oh my gosh, at the very least. Yeah.
At the very least.
Toronto-based actor, singer, and producer, Jillian Robinson.
This past summer, I played Olivia in Twelfth Night, so Shakespeare, but it was Gravenhurst specific and took place post-World War I in Gravenhurst.
Gravenhurst, Ontario?
Gravenhurst, Ontario,
cool.
Yeah. So Olivia, it was with Autumn Smith and Timberbeast Productions.
Okay.
Shout out, fabulous company, amazing human. So Autumn's adaptation was Olivia was a suffragette and a lumber mill owner. So she inherits her dad's lumber mill because he perishes in the war and so does his brother.
Right.
So she's coming into the space having just lost both of those family members and then having to take on a lumber mill as a female in Gravenhurst, Ontario, and also is like a budding suffragette. So a very weighted kind of period specific emotional carriage to bring into that. And then we'll talk about it too. The character I'm about to play is like this spastic MC clown character.
Buttons, right?
Yeah, Buttons. Yeah.
Love that name.
So at the end of the day, it's like, I think the process with whatever type of character I'm playing, I always research first. So especially if it's period specific or site specific, I delve into, this is where the like textbook nerd in me gets to shine. I ask myself questions. It's basically like I do dramaturgical work basically because I love dramaturgy and
cool.
It's to me so important in a space. And so for something like Olivia and Twelfth Night, I was able to, research Gravenhurst in the 1920s and ask myself questions like, Toronto probably would have been the biggest hub where like suffragette movement stuff was happening and how affiliated with Toronto was my Olivia and, shipments for lumber or whatever. Like I started asking these sort of like world questions, but also like practical questions. Yeah. And getting to know the area and the space. We actually performed it right on the Gravenhurst Wharf, which had Lake Muskoka behind us, steamships, and the old train station.
So you're right there.
So we were immersed too. Yeah.
How could you not do all this research?
Right, yeah. And then with a character like Buttons, who we'll get into, this clown panto character I'm about to play, I kind of, it's funny, my research methods change too. So like that, I get a feel of what my role has to be for the piece. Mm-hmm. And then I delve into what side of me has to be in the forefront, which I'll get into in a second. And like, what can I pull from? So the fact that I was a magical sort of imagination force for my niece and nephew who I nannied over the pandemic, and that high energy and sporadic spunk kind of thing, that's the kind of research I'm doing, is pulling from those days and infusing that in the character.
Take what you know already.
Exactly.
Like a real life situation.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, too, even with a role like Olivia, where there's a lot of sort of outside research that can be done, at the end of the day, when it comes to emotional choices and emotional experiences for those characters, I pull from myself and endow that however it can see fit. And touch wood, I have a brother and a father, and both of them are still living. And I'm close with both of them too. So, when Olivia loses her family members at the top, I can't relate to that, but I have lost my grandparents, or I have, and if I don't want to go that deep too, like I have lost an opportunity or something, right? And then it's layering stuff on that. So I guess, role specific, what is my kind of job for the project is like external research, either in textbooks, online, or like of past experiences, but emotional process, I always make it my own.
Yeah. New York-based performer, choreographer, and teaching artist, Chantelle Good.
So I have been an artistic associate with Toes since 2019, just before the pandemic happened. And, you know, the organization has been a part of my life since I was 12. Like from the first time I went to Fresh, I was a student, I was a participant, became a teacher's assistant, then a faculty member. So it felt really natural to take on this new role. And when I first took it on, I think all three of us, like me, David, and Kristen, were all curious about what the role could be. It wasn't really defined. It was more so just, okay, we can give you more responsibility and, you know, some more agency with like curating programming. So I was, you know, the three of us would meet, I think bi-weekly. You know, so I did have say in terms of who we were hiring, like faculty members, who the artists would be to perform at Common Ground. And I just loved being a part of that and, you know, just sharing my thoughts on like the organization level versus just teacher at Fresh, which has always been so fulfilling. But, you know, it was kind of nice to step into this new space. So that's kind of been the past couple of years. And then now this year, I'm taking over as program director for Fresh.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so David has been running it for, 15 years since its inception, and he's ready to more so focus on the festival. So now I am now directing Fresh, and I feel like just so honored. It feels like a homecoming. Like it just feels, that I have the skills that I need to take on this position. I'm really looking forward to, just kind of bringing in my own experience, both as a teacher and a performer. I'm excited to give opportunity to other artists in Toronto who I know have things to share, because like personally, I started teaching at Fresh, like David gave me my first teaching job when I was 16 years old. And I look back on that, it's wild. I don't know what I was sharing when I was 16, but
it's so many teenage year experiences.
Yeah, exactly. But, he gave me that chance. And so I'm really excited to give that to others, specifically BIPOC educators who, haven't been given that platform in that space. So yeah, I'm just excited to see. I think we're still going to just have the one event in Toronto in the summer. But the work has already begun. So we're starting with that. And I'm really, just excited for the next chapter of what the program could be. And also just, I want it to be aligned with our current dance landscape and, what's happening, what's current, not like TikTok current, but,
right.
Just in terms of what I think people need as students. There's so many lessons that I'm learning now at my age that I wish I knew when I was 12, especially in studio competitive dance settings. There's a lot of harm that can occur there. As you experienced it as well, like just growing up in that environment. So I'm excited to hopefully give young dancers, just more freedom and remind them that of their worth and that they can make mistakes, that it's not about perfection. All of these things that I was lucky enough to learn at Fresh as a kid. I think I'm just excited to continue that.
It's such a special place.
Cultivation.
Yeah, it's so full of like discoveries about, not just for me, it wasn't just about it being an artist, but also as a human and like how I interact with strangers. Because from that competitive studio environment, you're always with the same people. And then you go to a Fresh event and you're like, I don't know you, but like we can still connect and engage with each other and learn from each other and not have it be this, this like competitive, toxic, harmful situation. And like it truly, I think that's why I've come back every year to Fresh and to Toes, because I just need that. I need that in my life. And I know that it's super necessary for other artists as well. It's 10 years now that Toes has been going on, and it's only getting bigger, having you on as well. And I think like there's no stopping it now.
Oh, absolutely. We'll see kind of where the organization goes. I mean, like you said, I just credit so much of what I know about teaching dance, about leadership in dance spaces to those two.
Yes.
Like, honestly, from when I did my first kind of teacher training with them, just the lessons around how to really lead with compassion and care and like meet students where they're at versus telling them that they have to achieve this product or this thing. Like that philosophy, the toes for dance kind of philosophy has just given me so much, like more than I can even fathom. And I've been able to take that with me in all of my other teaching spaces. So yeah, just so much gratitude to them. And I'm like also excited to now have the agency to kind of put all those lessons into practice and yeah, make something new.
Listener, I hope you too make something new in 2023. Thank you for being a part of this podcast community, whether you have been there from episode 1 or have joined in just this past week. Thank you deeply. As long as there are plays, I will continue to produce new episodes. And we're actually approaching 100 episodes quite soon. I'm uber curious to know who you'd be interested in hearing from. Who inspires you? Where should the conversations go? Send your thoughts my way. I am a nerd. I will 100% read it all. Email artversationspodcast@gmail.com. And don't be shy to, just copy paste those thoughts and leave a review. It's just as simple as that. There's more content for you, including photos, quotes, and highlight clips on Facebook. That is bracket, ART, close bracket, Versations Podcast. And on Instagram at artversationspod, ARTVERSATIONSPOD. So don't forget to like and follow. Thank you, Zach, Audrey, Luke, Taves, Charlene, Katie, Ace, Sarahí, Jill, and Chantelle. Thank you to Jan Marquez for your consulting and extraordinary idea brain. And thank you, listener. Here's to more art in the new year. Till next time.